Stretching between sets of resistance exercise may enhance human muscle hypertrophy over and above that achieved with traditional resistance training. Could this simple technique really rapidly increase muscle growth? Well, I wanted to find out for myself, so for 10 days I stretched the working muscle group after every set, and the results actually surprised me. This is what happened, but you gotta focus. Heads right, tails left. Heads. Looks like we're stretching the right side. That's right, I'm only conducting this experiment on one side of my body. That's because I need a control group, the other side of my body, to better see any actual differences. I know this could lead to some issues, so I hope you're entertained. Getting started planning to do push-pull legs, I started with push, and the first exercise being incline press. Now even after my warm-up set, I jumped right into stretching the right side working muscle groups. And for incline press, that will be primarily chest and upper chest. How long should we be holding our stretches for? That's a good question. I tried to look this up and found anything from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. So what did I decide to do? Well, if we look at the study that I found that hypothesizes that stretching in between sets increases muscle growth, well, they hypothesized that this works by increasing the time under tension for that muscle group being stretched. Time under tension being a primary mechanism of action for increasing muscle growth through lifting weights. I figured if I kept my stretch about as long as the set that I just did, that should suffice, and this ended up being about 20 to 30 seconds, which might not seem like a lot, but after a couple sets in, I was already feeling a little bit off. Oh, that didn't feel right. Ooh, that did not feel right. It literally felt like the side I was stretching, my right side, had become weaker. And maybe it was just as simple as my right side being more fatigued from more time under tension, according to the hypothesis. Anyways, I ended up not going as heavy as I planned on the incline press, about 10 pounds lighter than my goal, and my top set only consisted of 5 reps before I felt like my right side could not push anymore without potentially something bad happening. So I finished up with a drop set, a stretch, and then moved on to the next exercise. Cable overhead tricep extensions supersetted with tricep pushdowns. This isolation tricep blasting exercise combo has been actually working really well for me over the past couple of weeks to help me add size to my weak triceps. So by maybe adding in this extra variable of stretching in between sets, would that help my, I guess, only right tricep blow up even bigger? We'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, stretching the tricep in between each of these sets was kind of uncomfortable. But I got it done, and after 3 sets of this superset, moving on to 3 sets of chest flies. And in between each set, doing the same stretch I used on incline press to stretch the chest. Finishing up with lateral raises supersetted with front raises, attempting to stretch the shoulder in between each set. At this point, I was beginning to feel very uneven. This side feels tight, but primed, you know, like ready. And this side just is like, I guess that makes total sense though. What side looks more pumped? I don't know. Trying to strategize so I can maximize these workouts because tomorrow we're doing pull. See you then. And jumping to day 2, pull day. Starting with 4 sets of chest supported machine row, using a handle on the machine to stretch the back on the right side in between each set for about 30 seconds. Now starting off, stretching the back side here didn't feel nearly as tasking as stretching the front side did during the compound lifts the previous day, but I was just getting started. Now when I jumped over to my next exercise, heavy bicep curls, well, the stretching in between these sets felt a little bit more uncomfortable. And with this exercise, I was noticing I wasn't able to do as many reps with this weight as I did the week prior, for it felt like my right arm, that's the arm being stretched between each set, was fatiguing much faster, doing about 2 less reps per set. After 4 working sets with stretches in between, moving over to some finger extended forearm curls, doing 25 reps for 2 sets, and holy moly, stretching in between these sets felt so tight in my fingers, hands, and forearms, like it was just very uncomfortable. Now the next exercise, doing the reversed forearm curls, 25 reps for 2 sets. When stretching in between these sets, for me at least, it didn't really feel that tight. Now finishing this workout up with lat pull down. I found the best way to stretch for this was actually just reach back up, grab the handle, and allow my body weight to stretch out my arm and lat.
What side's more pumped?
Maybe the left.
This side?
Yeah.
So I'm only really sore on the upper right part of the chest here, like it's actually tender to touch. The left side, nothing at all. So, oh, and honestly, my right forearm, if I touch it right here, is also tender too, where my left forearm isn't as tender. Is it related to the stretching after the sets? Possibly. Anyways, today, doing legs. This could be an interesting day. And it was interesting, let me tell you. Getting started with the first exercise of front squats, doing 3 warm-up sets, stretching my right quadricep in between. And on the final warm-up set, I started using this safety strap to help me get deeper in the quadricep stretch, which actually felt really good intra-stretch, but when I went back to do my first working set, the unevenness being looser in one leg and tighter in the other really felt like it was throwing me off.
Oh, that's weird.
Out of all the bilateral bar exercises so far, this one felt the sketchiest. It had me wanting to favor the tighter side throughout the range of motion, but when I mentally overrode that and tried to make it even, things started feeling weird on the side that was being stretched all the time. And I mean weird like something might pop, not in a good way. Yo, so if I throw this thing in between sets, does that mean I have to only stretch out the right side of my neck? Oh, maybe I'll just leave this out of this experiment and not do that for these 10 days. Anyways, I played it safe on the front squats, only going up to about 25 pounds under the goal weight I was going to go to, moving over to Bulgarian split squats. Doing sets of 20, stretching out the right hamstring and right glute in between each set. 3 total sets, and then moving over to Romanian deadlifts. Now at this point, I was feeling so uneven, wanting to favor my left side, my non-stretched side, so much that it felt like my whole body was in torsion as I was lifting the weight up. This, plus the back injury that I've been recovering from for months now, caused me to keep the weight really light. But needless to say, even with this light weight, after the stretch in between each set, I was feeling exhausted. So I ended up only doing 4 sets of 10 reps. But then to finish up, don't worry, I didn't forget, 4 sets of 25 reps of standing calf raises, using my body weight to deeply stretch the right calf in between each set. That was a weird feeling of imbalances. It was interesting. I am curious to how that's gonna set in by tomorrow. Oh man, see you then. And day 4, I am not milking it. Look carefully, I actually have a hobble going on. My right side felt way off compared to my left side, really on the legs. However, starting the cycle of push-pull legs over again, with a push day, I was hoping my body would start to be getting used to this intra-set stretching. And well, unfortunately, right off the bat, I just wasn't feeling exactly right.
Right there, it just starts to feel like not right.
And by not right, I mean not only did the right side feel significantly weaker than the left, but at the bottom of the bench press movement, it just felt like it was at way greater risk for injury, which is kind of silly because you always kind of think stretching to help prevent injury, but when it's done intra-set pretty intensely and done unevenly, like only on one side like I'm doing, it just feels like I can load the non-stretched side up more, but maybe I shouldn't with the stretched side, but because I'm doing bilateral movements, it's causing like this imbalance and causing me to like way overload my stretched side. But could this be perhaps part of the process pushing me closer to that line, hopefully not over it, that will cause me to spontaneously grow more muscle on the stretched side? I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. Another thing that I was noticing that was happening and becoming recurrent was during my stretching in between each set, it always kind of signaled me to be more relaxed. And this relaxedness was beginning to get harder to get out of to go into the next set, especially on this 4th day. So my right quadricep is so much more sore than my left quadricep. Like left, it's like no problem, but right, oh, like Anyways, during yesterday's workout, the push workout, I was getting so exhausted. Now I'm thinking some of that is due to the stretching intra-set, maybe getting me into that like relaxed reflex, you know, when you stretch sometimes. However, I'm also wondering maybe it's due to all of these frequent workouts. You know, we just did push-pull legs and then push yesterday without taking any rest in between. However, my left side feels good. Like I feel like it's not even sore. So literally half of me feels like it's good to go, good to work out, and the other half's like, bro, you need to take a break. So my plan is power through today, the pull day, power through tomorrow, the leg day, and then take a rest day. Anyways, today is the pull day, so I will see you during the workout. Oh, I should have went the other way. Starting out the pull day with some pull-ups, followed by weighted pull-ups in between each set, stretching out the right side only back by holding onto my squat rack and leaning backwards. Just a little side note, you can subconsciously see as I'm coming towards the end of my set, I am actually starting to favor my non-stretched side. I didn't know I was doing this until I filmed it and looked, which is very interesting, but kind of fits the hypothesis that stretching puts the muscle under more time under tension, which would therefore fatigue it more, which is probably why I'm going towards my more fresher side. But it is something to think about, you know, am I just compensating with my left side, putting more stress over there intra-set, but then making up for that by stretching out the right side? And at the end of the day, is it going to be just all evened out anyways? Now on the contrary, even if stretching had a similar effect on hypertrophy, what about all of the other factors, you know, stretching out the muscle fibers, the biomechanics, etc.? Am I going to be like super imbalanced after this? Probably, I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, moving over to decline pull-ups, stretching out the right side in between by just hanging on the pull-up bar for as long as I did the set, then moving over to reverse curls, stretching out the working muscles on the right side by doing this modified bicep stretch with the hand pronated. And then finishing up with 2 burnout sets of reverse forearm curls, dropping the weight down and then just going to failure, stretching out the working muscles on the right side in between these sets. That's a cold sweat. Moving over to leg day, where I actually started on the trampoline. It was nice out and it was a good warm up, but yes, I did still stretch the right side in between about 20-second spurts of jumping. Now moving over to the gym for the actual workout, starting with walking weighted lunges, stretching out the right quadricep in between with a simple runner stretch at first, but then eventually doing this stretch, which by the way, if I wasn't all doing this in balance, this would be one of the best quadricep stretches I've ever done. Moving over to seated hamstring curls, stretching out the right hamstring in between, and still just like every other exercise has been, it felt like I was favoring my left side or non-stretched side while doing the exercise. Like it just had more oomph. Moving over to adduction, stretching out the right adductor in between each set. Now when it comes to feeling sketchy, this is probably one of the top most sketchy feeling working stretch combos, for me at least, out there. And it's just like something about intensely contracting the muscle and then immediately stretching it and then going back to contracting it again. The way I'm feeling, kind of to describe it in like a grim way, is like, have you ever had an old rubber band where you stretch too far and then it frays and the elasticity doesn't turn back to normal? I'm like almost fearing in my mind that that's happening to the right side of my body with pretty much every workout, but especially some of these. And it's making me feel like on edge of that frayed rubber band just snapping, causing me catastrophic injury. And I know this might sound kind of contradictory, you know, stretching is usually paired with injury prevention, etc., but I'm stretching so much in between each set. I don't know, it just has been feeling sketchy to me, especially to go up to the weight that I'm used to in these exercises. But regardless, I'm doing my best to power through for this experiment.
Once again, it felt like I was gonna pull something on my right side when I reached closer to maximum intensity. So I'm just keeping it easy.
A much needed rest day with a much needed high calorie breakfast. So ready to be done with this experiment, but curious to see if there were actually going to be some significant results. I powered through the final push, pull, and leg day with some additional grip strength on leg day, and if you've been following along in some of my other progression videos, I am so close to closing the 2 by the way, but not yet, hopefully in a future video coming up soon. Anyways, 10 days of only stretching my right side in between sets? Did it have any significant effect on muscle hypertrophy? Well, we're gonna find out now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the results. Weighing in pretty much close to the same, the side-by-sides in my opinion from the front look pretty similar. Let me know what you guys think. Just hold on a second though, because when it comes to the measurements, well, you'll see in a second, I was surprised. Now when I turn to the back, I feel like the size looks similar, but I look more tight and imbalanced actually on my right side shoulder, which is the stretch side, but also keep in mind this is a chronic injured shoulder, and for some reason maybe the stretching or whatever made it slightly worse. Okay, now the legs, specifically the thighs in my opinion, look a little bigger in the afters, and then the calves, I don't know. Moving on to the important part and what really surprised me, the actual measurements. So every measurement you're seeing here is from the before, basically just measuring all limbs, upper and lower parts. So was there an actual measurable difference made from this experiment? All right, the real moment of truth. Starting with the right arm, it appeared on the right side I put on 1/4 of an inch, and then on the left side it seemed pretty much exactly the same. On the right forearm, it appeared I put on 1/2 inch. And then on the left forearm, it appeared I put on about 1/4 inch. Now the right thigh had the biggest increase at about 0.75 of an inch, while the left thigh had only about 1/4 inch improvement. And then for the calves, there was no difference on the right, and about 1/4 inch increase on the left, I don't know. So laying out all these results, it actually does appear that stretching the right side in between sets may have actually worked for increasing muscle hypertrophy. I can't believe it. What do you guys think? So I'm actually shocked. That may have worked perhaps pretty well. But yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked at only doing this for 10 days, actually only 9 workouts, and basically experiencing these positive results on the stretch side. But just as a precaution for myself and just to throw out there, you know, doing this too much, just like anything else, probably would have some negative effects, obviously. Luckily, it didn't seem like I experienced anything too badly throughout this experiment. I was getting more fatigued on the right, and my right side was more sore more often. I guess it does make sense that maybe it did somehow stimulate it through that stretch response, through that extra time under tension. I guess the argument could be, is it just as good as doing more sets on the right? Like if I would have just had more time under tension on the right side, would it perhaps had the same effect, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on for days. I hope you guys got the gist from this experiment. I'm not gonna do it in between every set. Maybe some sets, I might use it for hypertrophy, but if I'm going for strength and explosiveness on some things, I might not decide to implement it in between sets, but I will still implement stretching and mobility outside of in between sets too, obviously, like I have been doing. Blah, 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 a lot of stuff to think about, but all in all, I personally think this did work for me, at least in this 10-day frame. Let me know what you guys thought about this experiment. I hope you all have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace. I will see you all in the next video.